You're listening to Food Rebels and welcome. This is the podcast that brings you brands, chefs and live on-air tastings. A show that's dedicated to the more rebellious side of the food world where we celebrate the people who have challenged the status quo. We'll be giving you a peek behind the curtains and inside the minds of the people who are shaking up our food industry. You know me, I'm the show host, AJ Sharp, taste expert, food writer, great taste food judge and of course business owner. I love meeting new people and tasting new foods. So, sit back as we hear more stories from people in food who dare to be different. Good morning and welcome to Food Rebels on this beautiful spring day. I'm really excited to welcome Imogen Royall from the Northern Pasta Co. who's joining us today. Welcome, Imogen.
Hi, AJ. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
It's such a lovely day today, isn't it? The smell of spring is in the air everywhere.
I know, it's just the best. Winter now a little bit behind us and yeah, I've been out on a run, so I'm feeling really refreshed and ready to go.
Amazing. So tell us about Northern Pasta Co. Obviously you make pasta, but tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, we make pasta, absolutely, but we make really, really delicious British spelt pasta. We started 2.5 years ago now, and it's me and my husband, and we make it all ourselves up here in Kendal, just outside the Lake District. So yeah, we make this really delicious British spelt pasta using incredible British grown grains, traditional methods, and it's just the best. And I know you've tried some, so I'm excited to hear what you think.
I have actually. I have done my homework at home with my 9-year-old daughter. I've cooked all these different pastas. So we've got 3. I'm just going to dive straight in because I've got so many questions I want to ask you about your business. But I really just want to kind of talk about the pasta here because they are beautiful. These bags, these beautiful brown bags. And they're just lovely. So they're obviously recyclable because they're brown paper, which I love, with this nice little window here. So you can
and that's
it.
A fully biodegradable window, so no plastic whatsoever.
It?
Yes.
No way. I thought you'd just have to pull that piece out, but you don't.
No, and you can fully recycle it with paper as well because it's such a small part of the package. So there's no stress, no faffing around, just recycle.
That is awesome. So for our radio listeners, I've got 3 different brown bags with a blue, a purple and a sort of reddish pink label, I think, on the front. 2 of them have got Great Taste Awards. But the thing that really gripped me yesterday was that there's no penne here. There's no fusilli. There's nothing that you would recognise from probably your own food shop at the supermarket. These are called, now I'm going to say these wrong, aren't I? Rigatoni.
Yeah, beautiful.
Rigatoni. Casarecci.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. And radiatori.
Yeah, great. I feel like you've been practicing.
I really did, actually. I actually Googled how do you pronounce this, and it said all of the different syllables, but if there's 2 C's, say a ch.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, no, really, really nice. Yeah, I love all of those different shapes, and I think having those interesting shapes is so exciting for people. We have a rigatoni and we do have a fusilli that are slightly more, commonplace, but I think we love having the more interesting, exciting shapes. I think people really engage with them, and they're some of our most popular ones. So,
well, my daughter's favourite last night was the rigatoni, which is these sort of huge tubes.
Yeah.
And she really liked those. She was putting them on her fingers and she was really enjoying them.
Perfect.
But they are so beautiful, aren't they? I mean, talk me through, why spelt flour?
So I guess that takes us right back to kind of before the beginning, really. It was during COVID. I was working at a artisan bakery. I found myself working there. And that was where I started to, I realized that, we grow these grains in the UK, which sounds really daft, but, they grow right here. Why aren't we using those? Came across these fabulous ancient grains and the different flavor profiles that they bring. And obviously at this bakery, they were making sourdough. So there was a lot of conversation around gut health and using ancient grains to help with that. And then, I might go home and I'd grab a bag of bright yellow mass-produced pasta, pop it in a pan and eat it and be like, I don't feel so great. And it kind of why aren't I, I was like, why aren't I putting these 2 and 2 together? I kind of convinced Matt, my husband, that there's something here, and we started making it using some really beautiful grains, and the difference was just phenomenal because it just tastes incredible. It feels so much better. The texture is brilliant. It holds onto your sauce well. And it's all kind of about that joy of eating, which I think somewhere along the way with things like our staples and pasta has sort of got lost. We just chuck them in our basket, chuck them in a pan, chuck them in our mouths, and don't really like engage with it.
So true. And what we really noticed last night, because I made all of these and put some pesto on them for us to have for supper, and it was this piece, which is the radiatori, which Sophie described, I hope you don't mind this, as, you know, the little hair clips that you put in your hair. She said, oh, it looks like one of the little hair clips.
Perfect, that's beautiful.
But it's got such a massive surface area, and it only took 4 minutes to cook this one.
Yeah, really quick. That's a really, really quick. I think that's another thing, you know, it's really quick to cook. So when we first started creating our pasta, we coined this term, no compromise pasta. We basically wanted to not create something that was quote unquote healthy. And, you know, often with that, it doesn't taste very good, or it's got other sacrifices. It doesn't perform like it should. Or, you know, we didn't want to create something, that you sacrifice taste, or you sacrifice quality, or you sacrifice where the grain is from. We wanted to create something that hit every single thing. And a really key part of that is that the pasta is really enjoyable to eat. It clings to that sauce. It's sauce hugging. Every mouthful is really yummy. And I think we absolutely nailed that. And the radiatori is a complete testament to that.
I think so. That was the one that tasted like the most pesto-y out of all of them, because it's got such big surface area, so it cooks really quickly, and it just takes all the sauce. And that was amazing. We were really fascinated, whereas this one, the longer, thinner one, Casarecce.
Yeah.
That one didn't take as much sauce, but it felt more dense. So when you're really hungry, it felt like it was really satisfying.
Yeah, it's got a really lovely chew to it. And that one I would have with actually anything, but I love it with a ragu, and it's just got a really nice chewy centre. And it's sort of short pasta version of a long pasta, if you know what I mean. It's kind of got all of that feel going on. That is Matt's absolute favourite.
Is that made almost with a rectangle of the pasta dough and then rolled, but long ways? Is that how you've done it?
It's so actually, this is a great conversation. Basically, how we make the pasta is it's extruded. So when you were a kid, or your daughter might have one, we used to have, you know, the Play-Doh machines where you put the Play-Doh in. Okay, so it's sort of like that. So the dough is sort of forced through these dies, which are basically big circles, and we use bronze ones. We use bronze because that adds texture to the pasta, and that's why it grabs onto all that sauce. So when it is extruded through those dies, the shape is created, but, you know, we take it really slowly to maximize on that. And it gives a really lovely texture to your pasta. So that creates the shape, and it makes it that sauce hugging wonderful thing that it is.
And it is textured. It's really interesting because two of them, the radiatori and the casarecce, have both got a 1-star great taste. And I get why. It's very clean. One of the things I noticed last night, because I was packing it up, and we obviously ate some, you know, straight out of the pan, but I was also putting it into boxes to bring in today to the studio. And I really noticed that it's not starchy. You don't get that film of white kind of starchiness, and then it all sticks together. I was amazed when we got here this morning. I was expecting it to be a blob of like starch.
Yeah, mass.
And I was thinking, gosh, this might not look very good. And I was thinking I might not show it on air. But look, this is the next day, and it's still in beautiful separate pieces. I did plunge those bits straight into ice cold water to make sure they didn't continue to cook. But I haven't put any oil on that. I haven't put anything on it at all. And it's still maintained its integrity, and it still tastes lovely.
Yeah.
I could put, you know, my avocado with that for lunch. In fact, I probably will.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's just
definitely.
delicious.
I think that is a really big thing, is that, you know, we often have it leftovers the next day. And I think pasta salads have maybe got a bad rap, right? But that's often because maybe your ingredients aren't performing so well. And I think things like our pasta, because of those reasons you've just explained, work so, so well. And they kind of hold their shape, and especially the ones like the casarecce really hold that bite, so you can use it the next day, which is just brilliant.
And it feels, I mean, pasta's pasta, so it's never going to be healthy, but it feels healthier than some of the pastas that I buy at the supermarket, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really difficult conversation, healthy, and obviously that's one that it's discussed widely,
yeah.
and especially now entering into this food world, healthy is a conversation we're often having. And when I was growing up in the early 2000s and 90s, carbs were the demon.
They were,
And
weren't they?
it was a tricky time, yeah, to be in love with carbs. And I think, it was just completely demonized. And I think it's it's not true. It's really incorrect. And I think healthy is also about healthy from the very beginning. So for me, that includes like where it's sourced from, what's gone into that product, how it is made, are you enjoying it? What do you get from that? What's the experience? And I think health is just such a more holistic experience thing than trying to put it down to, numbers or things like that. I think it can be something that's about the joy of eating. And that's really what, with Northern Pasta, we try and speak to a lot is it's about reconnecting with your food, understanding your food, and just really enjoying it.
I agree with you. And I've been on a bit of a UPF kind of train, I think is the only way, fast train, for the last kind of few months, particularly some of the guests we've had on the show and some of the things I do in my other company. It's the hot topic, isn't it? Everyone's talking about UPF. And it was one of the things that I picked up this, and I could see there is only 2 ingredients, and both of them are real ingredients. It just says, this one says white spelt wheat flour and wheat semolina, and that's it, nothing else.
Yeah, that's it. I think that it's just the simplicity of it. I think when we were doing this with our packaging, because we only recently rebranded in October of last year, and it was really important for me. I want to get as much information. I'm so passionate about what we do. I want to talk about it as much as possible. But at the same time, I want to be really simple. I don't know if you spotted that. Did you see they've done the packaging?
Cornstarch. So this is, you're referring to, in M&S, they're doing some single ingredient products, and they're hitting a lot of controversy at the moment because in some ways it looks brilliant, doesn't it, that they are a single ingredient, but then some people are pointing out the ingredient itself isn't necessarily
it's not great. Yeah,
good ingredient. So it's controversial, isn't it?
It is really controversial. I think talking to the point, the good part of it is, it's really simplified. We're not overcomplicating things, and that's really what we wanted to do with our packaging. Is like, this is what it is. It's spelt pasta and it's British, and that's really important. It's really simple. I think rightly, like you've said, they're possibly highlighting ingredients that maybe aren't that great, and I think that's where our other messaging comes in is, and these ingredients, I know exactly, we know exactly where they've come from. My husband has literally made every single piece of pasta since day one. We know exactly what is going in.
Making it by hand, obviously you're using your equipment, but
he's been making it. Yeah,
it's not automated. It's
no,
a person there.
It's a person there, and we've got a wonderful new member of our team, Sam, who also now makes it alongside my husband. But yeah, my husband's been there since day one, making however many tens of thousands of bags, which is incredible. It's really, really incredible. But the point being that we know exactly what goes into it. We know exactly how it's made. And the way in which it is made is so important. So a lot of pasta you will see on the shelf is very bright yellow. I don't know. I don't know whether people resonate with it because they think egg yolks, pasta, and maybe that's it. But these pastas don't have egg in them. They're just bright yellow because of the process of high temperatures and fast, making it really fast.
Yeah.
Which is, first of all, not great ingredients go in. They treat those ingredients poorly, and then there's your product. Like, that's very difficult for your tummy and your body to be okay with. A lot of people do struggle with that. So for us, using really high quality ingredients, using a grain like spelt, and then taking great care with that makes for a really delicious product, but also one that maybe for a lot of people, they find easier to digest. So that's a really important part of it.
I can attest to that, definitely. My daughter actually finds too much gluten, and she often has a reaction. No problem. I didn't even think about it until just then when you said that. She didn't have any problem at all last night, so that's amazing.
Yeah, I think as much as we want to say that it's magic, I think really the core of that is just simplicity and honesty throughout.
good quality ingredients. You're also making me think, a few weeks ago, we had Heston Blumenthal come on at the show and he gave a beautiful interview. And one of the things that really struck me was him talking about the atmosphere in the kitchen and how it affects the food that comes out of the kitchen. For example, someone who's suffering from depression may oversalt food. You know, there's almost like a dulling of senses and things like that. And he said there's definitely a happy kitchen makes better food. And the idea that you have not this big industrialised factory, maybe with some people in there who are not that happy, but actually this is coming from a smaller environment with happy staff. You know, I think Tracklemans is another place that's testament to this. Guy Tallberg was telling us why he put windows in all of his kind of factory production hall, was to really make sure that his employees were having a nicer time in there. And I think, you know, what you're saying makes me think of that with your husband, Matt, and Sam kind of working together and it being a nice environment, people who care about what they're making.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating. Mental health impacts on food and vice versa. Food impacts on mental health. It's just a whole fascinating world. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, definitely. We did start 2.5 years ago. We started making the pasta together. It lasted, I would say, a week, and it was hell. And now he is fully in charge of production and I'm everything else, because that probably made for some very stress-filled pasta.
Why was it so stressful, if it's not too awkward a question?
I think I have a habit of maybe slightly looking over his shoulder and telling him what to do, which I don't think is beautiful when it comes to making pasta. And honestly, like, neither of us were in food prior to this. He is a builder by trade and I was an interior designer. So although that sounds like we would have no idea what we were doing, which, you know, I think naivety can be a massive strength. My husband is so skilled when it comes to his, you know, hands and fixing machines and making the product. He's so in tune with the pasta now. He is like lives and breathes it. So, and that is a huge reason why our pasta tastes as good as it does.
Do you know, I wouldn't say that you two having other careers actually makes for a bad combination at all. The number of food rebels we get on this show who have come from completely different backgrounds is huge. And actually, I can see that. Like, being a builder is really creative. You're working with materials. You have to understand your material. You know that, you know, your plaster or your cement will change based on the weather. And I imagine the same is so with food. And with your interior design background, your ability to understand colour and texture and things like that, I imagine that's really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're both very creative and he is incredibly practical and I'm more emotional, so we sit definitely in the right spaces. Yeah, I think it has been a real strength and we've worked together previously, so, you know, we work well together, which is great.
What did you do previously?
So prior to the business, we were actually living in Croatia and we had to move back because of COVID. We'd sold up our lives and drove out with a van and bought 4 walls basically and renovated it ourselves. So we were living on an island over there, which was really beautiful. And to be honest, it kind of kickstarted this whole venture because while we were over there, pretty much everything we ate, 90% of what we ate came from that island. And it was that kind of real engagement of, oh, my vegetables like literally grow 10 minutes away. And you know, my neighbours bringing me their olive oil from their fields. And I think when we came back during COVID, it was at a time where the fractures in our food system were really highlighted. You know, there was things missing from the shelves and our reliance on overseas was really highlighted. And I think that contrast for me really sparked, okay, there's something not quite right here. And that's really where I was like, we need to do something.
That's amazing. I suppose, what would you say to people then who are maybe inspired by your story and they're doing something that's completely unrelated to what they're dreaming about? What would you say, how hard has that process been of going from interior design and building into what you're doing today?
I think, it has been really challenging. Starting a business is very, very challenging. I think you've just got to be determined and very driven and very passionate about what you're doing. You can't, I know people say this all the time, it might sound annoying, but you really can't pick something that you don't really care about and you're focused on one thing and one thing only, because it just doesn't work. You've got to be really passionate and genuinely believe in what you are doing. Otherwise you'll burn out really quickly. But I think it's totally achievable. And I think, honestly, our food market and the world we're in now is ripe for disruption. There is so much going on, and I think it's a really, really exciting time to be in food, because I think customers and consumers are engaging with food a bit more, and perhaps not solely buying based on price. They're also buying based on emotions and feelings and taste. So I think it's a very exciting time to be in food. And if anybody has any ideas, I'm always like, go for it. I love it when people try new things. So yeah, I always say go for it.
I completely agree with you. I think it's a magical time that we have never had such an engaged, intelligent, well-educated, well-informed consumer populace. And this is not just some of the people who are really into food who read about it. This is the majority, or a larger majority than ever was before, who are really taking an interest in what they're eating and realizing this connection with, like you say, their mental health, with their physical health. And it's brilliant and exciting. And for so long, we've had supermarkets telling us what we're allowed to like and telling us what we're allowed to enjoy. Yeah. And now, for the first time, we're getting this consumer pushback of people saying, no, this isn't really what we want, actually, which is brilliant.
Which I think goes to your ultra-processed food point before. People are kind of saying, I don't want to be putting this into my bodies anymore. And they want to be, they are literally demanding and looking for alternatives. We still lean on, we still need convenience. We still want those things. Our lives are still busy, but people really do want different. So there's loads of exciting products and ideas popping up now.
That's absolutely true. Is it true that you hand stamped your first 60,000 bags when you were launching?
Yeah, we did, which is, our new, like I said, our packaging is fairly new, but yeah, I think this is the tricky thing, when you're bootstrapping your way through and you're it's just me and my husband and you're funding it yourselves, you've got to stretch yourselves to your limits. And that was, stamping. We would stamp the front of the bag, stick the back of the bag, stick the bottom of the bag, and stick the top of the bag. And yeah, it was insane. Thankfully, we got Matt's cousin to come in on a weekend and stamp some bags for us. But yeah, it was really, really hard going. And I think the new packaging is just, we were on a farmer's market stall, so it worked perfectly well. We started off selling a few hundred on our local wonderful Kendal Farmers Market. Is so brilliant. We started selling a few on there.
Oh, you're based in Cumbria?
Yeah, based in Cumbria. We've got some incredible food around here, but yeah, we have a really local farmers market, which is where we started it all, which gave us the opportunity to get going. So yeah, we were stamping the bags, and then we were very quickly launched into, okay, this has got busier, but we haven't solved this problem. And like with any startup, bottlenecks, just once you solve one bottleneck, the next one pops up and the next one pops up. So
it's always the way.
Yeah.
Did I read something? Were you on a television program really early on in your journey?
Yeah, so we were on the market stall. I think within the 6 months we were on James Martin's Saturday Kitchen.
Were you? That's incredible.
Yeah, that was just incredible. But and naivety is a strength, like I said. However, I was very naive going into that, because I was like, I would not recommend doing this, but we had probably 100 bags on the shelves, thinking that's going to be the number that's ordered. It won't be very much. At that point, we can make 100 bags a day. And I think we had like 6,000 orders. So multiple bags in like a weekend.
So it
was high stress.
You just had to make loads and send emails going, please bear with us.
The customers were really, really kind and so patient, I think we got all our orders out. It maybe took 4 to 6 weeks. People were incredibly patient. But Matt he worked shifts, so he'd work, leave it to dry, go back. It was just like very, very intense.
Just shows the power of TV, doesn't it?
The power of TV, definitely. And, it's launched us, it's helped us build a wonderful community of people. We have incredible repeat custom, and that really gave us such a good groundwork to then grow. So we're super, super grateful for that.
That's amazing. And where can we buy it now?
We actually just launched in Whole Foods this month, which is very, very exciting.
Brilliant.
So I'm really excited about that.
Whole Foods mostly in London?
It is mostly in London. So that was kind of always a bit of an aim, even before we started, because it's such a brilliant place. But we have loads of wonderful independents across the UK, which you can find. All our stock is on our website. You can obviously buy from our website, but our independents are really important to us. They've been with us from day one, and just, those places that you walk into and they're just like Aladdin's cave and your basket ends up so full of these amazing things. We've got loads of them. And then, Booths is our local northern supermarket, and we're in there as well. Yes.
You've got most of the UK covered then.
Yes, yeah.
And how much does it cost for one of these beautiful, are they 450 gram bags?
Yeah, it's £4.95 for one of those.
£4.95, and well worth it, because I think unlike other pastas where you maybe cook loads, what I really noticed last night was we didn't need tons of it. Actually, it was, in that way, it's good value for money because it's a
definitely. I think, you can get like 6 portions out of that. And which is brilliant, and I think, and it's just such a joyful thing. I think we hear so much of that feedback from our customers, so that's really lovely to hear.
Absolutely amazing. What's been the most unexpected part of this journey so far?
That's really, I think how quickly it's happened. I can honestly say, before you start a business, you should have a 5-year business plan, and you should write things down and have spreadsheets.
No one does.
I can honestly say, nobody does. That isn't really a thing. But so we started on a farmer's market, honestly, just day to day. It was just like, what's going to happen today and what's going to happen tomorrow? And I think we never just anticipated that we would be in this position as much as we wanted to be in this position. I just don't think we thought ahead further than a week. So I think how quickly things have changed for us and how well it has resonated with customers. I think I used to say, like, when we would engage with customers on markets, the enthusiasm, and now the enthusiasm in our reviews, it's almost like people are buying a chocolate cake. They enjoy it so much. They're so excited by the fact that I know the person that's made my pasta. I know where it has come from. And that it's made in the UK, I know where it has been made. The passion from people, I think that has blown me away. We've really tapped into something, and I love our customers for that.
What kind of things do your customers say? I've just one last question before we have to go.
Definitely a bit like you've been saying, like their kids all enjoy it, so they can all sit around the table and all enjoy dinner together because they've got something they can all eat, which is everything I want. That they, like you said, aren't bloating or don't feel heavy as much, so they can really enjoy their food. That it's super delicious. They could never go back to other pasta again. It's ruined supermarket pasta for them. I love that. Yeah, just brilliant things.
Amazing. I could absolutely understand all of those comments. It's amazing. Imogen, I'm so sorry we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, AJ. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been great. Lovely to share the story, and really lovely to discover these new pastas that I think will become a staple in our household.
Amazing.
Thanks, Imogen.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Food Rebels, which is available on radio stations around the UK and further afield. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and Audible. Please remember to subscribe and rate us with 5 stars or follow us. It makes such a difference, not just to our podcast and radio show, but it really helps to support the guests that come on the show with us. We're also on Instagram at food_rebels. So give us a follow, do get in touch. We love hearing from you, and let us know what you think. Thanks so much for joining us, and make sure you taste the rebellion.